The first thing I'm going to do here in ArcMap with it open is make sure I can see my catalog view. So I go to Windows in the menu, Catalog, and that will open up the catalog window on the right-hand side of the screen. I'm just going to drag it in the middle here so it's easier for everybody to see. So in catalog, I'm going to go to my lecture 7 data or exercise 7 data. So it's here. I have put mine in my temp, and I'll scroll down till I find it here. There it is, exercise 7 data. And there's my walking folder. And here is my network geodatabase. And walking is the name of the layer. And I'll just bring in the paths and roads just to show you. And you can see this is a lot like ArcGIS Pro. And I'm just showing here, I'm going to right click and open the attribute table for roads and show you the attributes in here. So right now I have a suffix type, suffix direction, Carto, one way, route hierarchy, RSH traffic median, all these different fields. Speed limit kilometers. And of course, the shape length is the length of each segment. For paths, open that up. I have a walk time in paths, as well as length. So I have a walk time here, but I don't have a walk time in the roads layer. So to add a walk time here in the roads layer, I'm going to have to go back to ArcGIS Pro and add that attribute in. So I'll remove roads from here for now. And I'll go back to ArcGIS Pro. I'll go to my catalog pane. In my catalog pane, I'll go to add that folder. So I'll right click, add folder connection. And I'm going to see temp exercise 7 data. I'll click OK. And in that folder, exercise 7 data, walking, network, walking. I'll see I have my roads, so I'll bring those in. I'll right click and open the attribute table. And I want to add in a new field. So I'll go to the fields view. At the end here, I want to put in a new one. So I click, and I'll call that walk time. And then I want that to be of type double. And I get this error right now. Cannot get exclusive schema lock, either being edited or in use by another application or service. Failed to execute. So this, when I get a schema lock error, which you will see from time to time, this means that I'm trying to edit or change a layer which has already been locked by another software. That could be another session of ArcGIS Pro, or in this case, because I have had it and I added it to ArcGIS Desktop, even though I removed it, it still keeps it locked. So I need to close ArcMap and redo that. Close, and I'll just click Save again. And that will remove the previous lock. Now if I go back to roads, I see walk time there. Then I'll go to my walk time, click on it, right click, and say Calculate Field. With the Calculate Field dialog, input is roads, the field name is table, expression Python 3. So right now my shape length is in meters, and I need to make that into kilometers when I do this equation. Because remember, walking or time is equal to 60 times parentheses. And in the parentheses, make some space there, there's going to be parentheses divided by 5. And the distance here will be the field length, which is in meters, times 1,000, to put it into kilometers, divided by 5 kilometers per hour. And then I'll click run. Now I validate. Validation is the process of ensuring that what you computed is correct. Notice I didn't get an error here or anything. Everything looks good. That's good so far. But then I look at my walk time right over here. And for example, for a 39-meter road length, I have a walk time of 721 minutes. That's a long time, right? For 200 meters, I have 675 minutes. For 173 meters, I have 211 minutes. I got to make that a bit bigger. So, oh, whoa. Now that I've actually expanded the size of that field, I see that that's a lot of minutes. That's 47,000 minutes, 721, to move 39 meters. And even a snail would traverse that length in much less than that time. So by validating, I can see that I've done something wrong. Something's happened that doesn't make sense. So this is called an ad hoc validation. Always you need to validate what you produce. Whether or not the software does it or not, like it did here, everything worked correctly. From a software perspective, I got the wrong answer. So I go back now and I look at my equation. Is that the same equation? When I think I go back and I look at my equation, I say, oh no, it's actually supposed to be 5 kilometers per hour over the number of kilometers times 60. So I'll rerun that now. So by validating, I found, and then backtracking, I found where my mistake was. And it doesn't mean that just because it works now, it's good. I still have to validate again. Then I look at this. So 200 meters in, this is all less than a minute. So something still is wrong. So I'm still not getting things that make sense. They're smaller numbers now, which are more reasonable, but the actual numbers are less than a minute. And I don't think I can walk 1.3 kilometers in that small of a time. So that means I want to go back and check my, so I have Tmin equals 60 over distance in kilometers over speed in kilometers per hour. It seems to be what I did the second time, right? But I still don't get reasonable values. So I have to ask myself, am I sure? Well, let's look at this. So I have 39 meters, and I said, let's multiply that by 1,000 to get meters. Oh, I think maybe that's the issue. To convert meters into kilometers, I wouldn't multiply by 1,000, I would divide by 1,000. So it's shape length divided by 1,000, not multiplied. Now I click run again. And again, I will get no error, but I have to validate still. So I look again and realize, oh boy, this still isn't making sense. So this is my third validation. So looking at the equation, I realize, hey, it's 60 times the distance divided by the speed, which is S here. And I have time, 5 kilometers over distance. So now I have to fix that again, divided by 5. Then I'll click run. Now I'm not so confident this time. I'm automatically assuming that my results won't work again. So I'll need to validate. Okay, so here we go now. I have, for about 40 meters, half a minute. That's reasonable. 200 meters, 240 meters, about 3 minutes. That makes sense. A kilometer and 1.3 kilometers in 16 minutes. That makes sense now. So these numbers are now making sense, right? And only I know that. The computer doesn't. It took me 3 tries to get them right. And on the first try, I never saw an error. I just might assume that I did everything correct. So the lesson here is that everything you do, you must validate, whether it's a computation like this, or if the result is not a computation, but a map layer. If you're not looking at what you do each step, then you're already doing it wrong. Validation is the most important thing when you're doing any type of analysis. And the computer will not tell you that you were right. This, it told me I was right basically every time because it didn't give an error. But really, I was not right at all until this 4th try. And I would only know that if I validated each time. So always checking to make sure that you are doing things right is the lesson here. Okay, that being said now, I'm going to close ArcGIS Pro and go back to ArcMap to make my network data set. But wait, before I do that, maybe I should check the walk time calculation, which is done or has already been done within the paths layer. So I'll click cancel. I'm going to copy this equation, Control C. I'm going to add in from catalog the paths, because there's a walk time in there, but I didn't create that walk time. So I'll open the attribute table. And it's right here. Whoa, something is looking a little weird here, isn't it? Well, what's this length one? This length one, does that even make sense? Is that part of this analysis? Well, let's just have a look. Length here is for these segments, and I'll zoom to those segments. So it says the length of that. Which segment is that though? Is that one, that one, that one, or that one? That one's that one there. And I'm just going to check with my measure tool. So that's 13.83 meters. Not 283, it's this one, 13.76. So this length is not one that obviously makes any sense in the context of the length of these things. I don't know where that length came from. But the shape length makes sense. That would be the right one, because it always, shape length is a maintained attribute as part of the geodatabase. And it always contains the current length values for each feature in meters. So does walk time make sense? 251 meters in 3 minutes, that makes sense, but I'm just going to double check and I'm going to right click and I'm going to recalculate that field anyway. So I'll click calculate field and I'll just paste in the previous example. And I'll click run. And this ensures then, oh, it says fail to execute. Shape length is invalid because it's called shape length here. There we go. GTH. So that time the computer did give me an error because I just copied and pasted, but I didn't have the right name of the field for this particular layer. And it looks like the same values. So that's good. That's another validation. Since I can compute that one, I computed it to make sure that it would be correct. Now I'll close ArcGIS Pro and go and open ArcMap. So now I'll go back to my folder connections and I have my temp folder here where I have my data. So I'll just expand that in catalog. And again, You can just go to Windows Catalog to show the catalog pane. Exercise 7, data, walking, network, and walking. So I don't need to add them in here because we now know that they both contain a walk time. So to create my network data set, I right-click on walking and I say new network data set. You may not see that. So you might see a grayed out one. And that means you have to load the extension for this. So you might see something that when you look at new, it doesn't either show network data set or it shows network data set grayed out. In that case, you have to go to customize in the menu and then extensions, and then put a check mark beside network analyst, like you see here. Once the check mark shows up, just click close. And then go back to walking, right click, new network data set. And it will just be called walking underscore ND, that's the default. Next. Then we put in what's going to participate, roads and paths. So notice it automatically looks in that same feature data set for all the feature classes and presents them here. And you put a check mark beside those things that will participate in this network data set. And then you click next. So roads and paths. Modeling turns, because it's walking, no. Next. Connectivity, we must specify. So by default, it's endpoints only for paths and roads. But we want to be able to realistically model the fact that anytime there's a intersection between a path and a road, we can change mode from path to road or road to path. So we put any vertex here, like so, and click OK. Then I click next. And I'm going to use elevation fields this time. So I'm going to say here, field, and it says none. So there is no elevation fields to use in this particular data set. So I can't model elevation, unfortunately. So I have to go back to none. Click next. So these are the network attributes. The default impedance is length, and there is one way. And I'm going to remove one way because one way doesn't matter for walking. So I click on the one way and click remove. Now length, I want to add walk time. Let's call it walk time. When I add, it'll be cost, units, minutes. So I look for minutes in here. Right there, minutes. Type double. And I put use by default. And I'll click OK. I notice the little blue thing changes to here, which has a D in it. That means that's a default impedance now is walk time. For this network, since it's to model walking time should be the default. Now that I have that cost, I have to click on evaluators and specify what that should be. And since I called it walk time, and I have a variable in both participating layers called a walk time, it automatically found it for me here. And ArcGIS will do that. It's a handy thing about it. If you called your thing just time or something different, then you'll have to click here and say for type field and then value walk time for each one from the drop down for the fields. But here I populated it for me, luckily, so I click OK. Then I click next. This one you don't have to touch. Driving directions, nope. It's a walking data set. But if you wanted directions out of it, you could put yes if you wanted to use it for directions. Next, build service area index. Yes, this will speed things up. And I click next. Then it gives me a summary. And generally, I'll just click in here, say Control C, or I should say Control A. Well, it's not working right now. Basically, I would copy, highlight it all, Control C, and paste that into a place that I would keep handy so that I know what the configuration of my particular data set was. And I click Finish. Then it will ask me if I want to build that data set. So it says the new network has been created. Would you like to build it now? And I say yes. And again, that can take a minute or two. And it will say at the end, the network has been built, but with some errors. The network can still be used. However, invalid features will not participate in the network. And I could, for example, say show build errors, and it will show me. And in this case, most of them are that there's an edge that's too small, and that's fine. There's not a lot of those. It's just probably ones along the edge of the region where there's just segments of an edge and they're very small, so it can't really be used for anything. And that's okay. So close that and click close. And I don't want to add anything to this map, so I'll click no. And I'll close ArcMap and go back to ArcGIS Pro. And then we'll see in a second here that within the walking geodatabase feature data set, we have a walking ND, which is the network data set now. We can use that in ArcGIS Pro. So I'll close this. I don't need to save anything here.